Hello and welcome to this episode from Kinsey Tech, where we're going to continue our journey with SOQL, SOQL, Salesforce, Object Query Language. We're going to talk about some of those interfaces we could use to execute our select statements or our queries using SOQL. So we said one of the advantages of using SOQL over reports in Salesforce is you have more power. So it's easier to identify things through SOQL, like duplicate records, as we've seen so far. And you can do a lot more grouping, a lot more filtering with some of those features that are present within SOQL by default. In addition to that, as we gave an example earlier, that let's say we've created 10 reports in Salesforce, and now the business within the next 6 months is moving to Tableau or Power BI or MuleSoft for a reporting, so that more people can use and access those reports. If I have it in Salesforce, I need to go back and get all the requirements and what filters are in there and what data are you getting? Is there any computation that's happening? It's going to take us weeks or a month even to convert those 10 reports into those other platforms like Tableau. But if I have a SOQL statement, all I have to do is just take it, plug it in there, execute it, and I'm able to run it in a matter of seconds, literally. And if it's a SQL environment, maybe a couple of changes here and there to the syntax, and we're done in a matter of minutes. So we're going to look at a couple of places where we can execute our statements. So let me share my screen. So by default, of course, the famous place is to go through Setup in Salesforce and choose the Developer Console and click on Query Editor. And this is where I can enter my statement and click Execute, and then it populates here. So I'm going to click Execute. And this is the output. I selected the name, the amount, the stage name, the close date from the opportunities. And sure enough, that's what's populated in here. Now let's look at another interface that a lot of people use, and you're going to find it very helpful. It's WorkBench. And the website is workbench.developerforce.com. Workbench.developerforce.com. And it's also, if you go to the Kinsey Tech page, you're going to be able to download the file, and the link is in there. You're going to enter what environment you're going to. Is it a sandbox? Is it a production environment? You're going to put your username, your password, agree to it, and then click Login with Salesforce, and you're going to get logged in. There's a lot of beautiful features in there where you can query things, and we're going to look at some of this information at other times. But now let's take an example of where I could jump into what I want to use. I want to use SOQL query. So I'm just going to jump to SOQL query. What object am I going to work with? I can choose an object. Let's say it's account. Click select. And if you're new to Salesforce or you're looking at something basic, the SOQL builder can help you do that. So for example, I want to select account numbers. So the moment I click on account numbers, it's going to build a query for me. It's going to put select account numbers from account. So let's look at this. I'm just going to click, and immediately already created for me. So I click query, it's going to populate the results down here. Let me click query. Sure enough, it populated it. I want to see the annual revenue. It created this for me. Query. It's going to show me that output. Count is going to have the count, but it doesn't have a field. Let's say I want to count the names, and then query, and it shows me the output. Well, suppose I want to do that same select statement I did earlier. Select name, amount, stage name, close date for opportunity when I click query. So it's editable. It doesn't have to be controlled by those. I can type in whatever I want. When I click query, the output is going to be populated below. Click query. Sure enough, this is the output. But in real life, a lot of the times you don't just want to see it in here. You want to be able to export it to Excel or CSV file. So the output does not have to be a list like this. You could actually click bulk CSV. I'm going to click on bulk CSV and query. Notice the output is not going to go here, but it's going to give me a link to a CSV file that I can download that has my data. So let's click query. And sure enough, it's saying this is your query and this is your output in a CSV format. So if I click here, it's going to download a notepad file that is my query. So I click on it. A file is downloading. And sure enough, this file has my query. But the download arrow, if I click on it, is going to download a CSV file. And if I open it, it's going to have my data, comma separated values, CSV, or comma delimited values. And this is the export of my data. So this is another thing that's nice about SOQL is when you have that query, you can plug it into a lot of interfaces. In this case, we've done it through Developer Console, but we also did it through WorkBench. Workbench has a lot of beautiful features. So if you have the time to play around with it to see how you can, modify your data, all the DML data manipulations of inserting, updating, deleting certain records and looking for things and executing queries, it's a very beautiful platform. Enjoy your trip, and we hope to see you in our next session. Thank you.